This past weekend, we saw a fun, high-level bantamweight title fight at UFC 311. I think at this point, bantamweight is at worst a top 2 weight class. I think there's a case to be made that it is the best weight class in the UFC, just when you look at the top-level competition, also the depth, 1 through 15, also some of the guys that aren't even ranked. But when we look at this weight class, there are only 3 ranked fighters who are currently booked. So there are a lot of potential matchups out there. Obviously, the champ Merab is going to be looking for a fight. He wants to fight 4 times a year. So there are a lot of fights that need to get made here. So I'm going to be going through and putting together fights for every single ranked guy in the weight class. We have to start off here with the champion, Merab Dvalishvili. Honestly, at this point, he's making his case for the bantamweight GOAT. Last 5 wins are against Umar, O'Malley, Cejudo, Jan Aldo. Just an insane run there. 4 former champions. The dude's an absolute monster. I feel like there have been 4 names that have been thrown out as potential next opponents. We have a rematch against Umar Nurmagomedov. We have a rematch against Sean O'Malley. You also have a rematch against Petr Yan, but obviously some distance between when they fought. And then also a potential, champ versus champ matchup against Alexandre Pantoja. I want to start off by just immediately throwing out Umar and O'Malley. When you look at Umar Nurmagomedov, he had 1 ranked win into a title shot. I'm not saying he wasn't talented enough to get the opportunity, but he 100% got a favorable push from the UFC based on his team, the name, Khabib being his coach. He got an opportunity that most wouldn't have gotten when you look at his actual record, his resume, and he lost a title shot. Let's see him against some of the guys in the top 5, top 10 before we throw him right back in there. And then honestly, a pretty similar situation for O'Malley. He had 1 ranked win into a title shot. I will say, though, he won the title right, knocked out Aljo. Good on him for that. And then he did defend it against Cheeto, but if we're being honest, it was a very favorable title defense, giving him that Cheeto matchup. I also don't think O'Malley has earned a rematch. Also, the first fight wasn't super competitive. At least Umar, right? Lost 2-3. For O'Malley, it was not super competitive. I don't have really any interest in a rematch with either of those guys. I think if we're going to pick someone at bantamweight, Petr Yan is 100% the most deserving guy. He has back-to-back wins over Song Yadong and Davison Figueiredo. There's actually not another bantamweight in the top 7 or 8 who's even coming off a win. So if we're sticking at 135, Petr Yan's the clear guy. Obviously, the negative is just that the first fight was not super competitive. Merab pretty much just spam wrestled him, out-cardioed him for 5 rounds, and pretty much blanked him 5-0. So that would be the drawback. But if we're going by merit, I think it should be the Merab Petr Yan rematch. And I do think Petr Yan's too good to get beat as thoroughly as he did in the first one. I also don't hate the Pantoja fight. He has 4 title wins. There's no clear number 1 contender. I think it's an interesting stylistic matchup. You could also let bantamweight develop. But if we're matchmaking the bantamweight division, let's just put together this Merab Yan rematch. Now let's talk about the title challenger Umar. Like I said, he has only faced 1 ranked fighter. That was Corey Sandhagen. So there are a lot of potential names out there. I do think he's probably the second best guy in the weight class. So I think he's going to have some success. I want to keep him up against these top guys. I think a Davison Figueiredo fight is interesting. I think Figgy kind of did the UFC a solid by taking the Petr Yan fight. In my mind, he had already earned a title fight with his 3 wins up at bantamweight, 2 against ranked opponents against Chito Vera, Rob Font. The UFC clearly did not agree because they booked him in, I guess, kind of a number 1 contender fight against Petr Yan. It didn't go his way. I think he probably should have already been lined up for a title shot. So I like the idea of keeping him in the mix, keeps both these guys in the title picture. It's a very high-level fight. Former flyweight champion. Figgy's dangerous. Let's see how Umar does against him. Then probably the fight I'm most interested in seeing at 135. I know people like to throw Sean O'Malley's name out there for a Petr Yan rematch, an Umar Nurmagomedov matchup. I really want to see Sean O'Malley take on Corey Sandhagen. I feel like this has been talked about for a while. It's stylistically very fun, keeps both guys in the title picture. Both just lost to grapplers by getting out wrestled. O'Malley against Merab, Corey against Umar Nurmagomedov. So let's see these guys go out there, strike, have a fun striking performance. Both tall, lean guys in the weight class. I just think it's a super fun matchup, and I want to see this one finally go down. Now, looking at the current top 9, we have Henry Cejudo and Song Yadong, who are currently booked to face each other. We have Rob Font, who is booked to fight Dominic Cruz. The only guy left that we have not mentioned yet is Chito Vera. I think a fun fight would be the rematch between Cheeto and Jose Aldo. I don't really care that Aldo would be fighting up off a loss. They've given him these 2 kind of young, up-and-coming bantamweights, and the fights have been fine, right? They've been entertaining. Jonathan Martinez, Mario Bautista. But I feel like the UFC isn't actually getting any benefit from these matchups. I get the idea, right? Like Jose Aldo's getting up there in age. He's probably not making a run at the title. Let's try to build some of these young guys off of him. Jose Aldo is just too good to let that happen to him, at least for the guys that they've chosen, right? Like Aldo clearly won the first matchup against Jonathan Martinez. I thought he beat Mario Bautista. If you're actually valuing damage and the scoring criteria, I think he should have won that fight 2-1. But even a guy who did beat Jose Aldo, right? Like you book a prospect and Mario Bautista against him, he gets the win on the judges' scorecard. It literally did him no favors. Like he's one of the most hated guys in the UFC just because he beat Jose Aldo, kind of held him up against the fence. It's not working for them. Let's just get a fun fight. Let's get Jose Aldo in a fun matchup. And if he can somehow make another run for the title, I think that's only a plus for the fans and for the UFC. Cheeto's not going to be shooting on him, holding him up against the fence. They're going to go out there. They're going to strike. Those are the matchups I want to see both Jose Aldo and Chito Vera take part in. Now, looking at the last 5 ranked fighters here, we have Mario Bautista, Kyler Phillips, Amin Zahabi, Marcus McGee, and Montel Jackson. Now, out of these 5, Kyler Phillips is the only one who is coming off an L, so he's someone who I think should probably fight outside the rankings. If you're ranked, in the bottom of the 15 in such a stacked weight class, you're probably going to have to, put that spot on the line in your next matchup. Then looking at the rest of the 4, Bautista, Zahabi, McGee, and Montel Jackson. Mario Bautista and Marcus McGee are actually teammates. They train at the same gym, so I'm not going to book them together. I think Montel Jackson taking on Mario Bautista is interesting, and then Amin Zahabi taking on Marcus McGee. Zahabi and McGee, both slightly undersized bantamweights, both going to go out there, have an interesting striking battle. Marcus McGee, super fun, powerful on the feet. Zahabi's crafty, also likes to keep it standing. This is kind of a punishment, I guess, to Mario Bautista, maybe. Like Montel Jackson is huge for 135, long frame, super tall. I don't think Mario Bautista, after that win against Aldo, is going to get like some super high profile fight. I just don't see it happening. So he's going to have to fight back regardless, at least, with how I'm matchmaking. So Montel Jackson, I think that is also an interesting fight. And then, like I said, Kyler Phillips going to have to fight outside the rankings just because he's coming off a loss. I think he should take on the winner of Said Nurmagomedov and Vinicius Oliveira, also known as Loke Dog. I think whoever wins that fight 100% has to get a shot at the rankings. Said, I think, has kind of been overdue to get a shot. And then Loke Dog, coming off a win over Ricky Simone, another win over Said Nurmagomedov would definitely get him into that spot. So that's kind of how I'm matchmaking those, bottom 5 in the rankings. Overall, it's a fun weight class. Some fun matchups to be made. I think Petr Yan getting a shot at the belt makes sense. Like the O'Malley-Sandhagen fight. Some interesting matchups with Umar Figgy. We also have, guys currently booked, like I said, Dominic Cruz retirement fight against Rob Font. If Rob Font looks good, he's now in the mix. We'll see who wins in the Song Yadong-Henry Cejudo fight. That's someone who, could be a big name. If they do go to Pantoja, maybe you give Petr Yan the winner of that Song Yadong-Cejudo fight. A lot of fun combinations out there. If you guys have some different matchups in mind, would love to hear them. But thank you all for stopping by, and I will see you in the next one.